Good Sunday morning, Facebook and YouTube. How you doing? Guess what time it is? It is Sunday Sports Wrap with your sports guy Kendrick. Good Sunday morning, and it is it is cold. Yeah, that Arctic blast is pretty much covering the United States, and here in Texas, it is not fun right now. So we're gonna be inside. Hope you all be safe out there. If you have to get out, make sure you bundle up and all that stuff. But man, it is cold right now. But again, you are watching the best 30-minute sports talk show in social media. That is TFG Sports Media. Again, I am your host, Kendrick, the sports guy. And hope you all are having a good Sunday, regardless of it being cold. But let's get down to business. Make sure you come in. Make sure you like. Make sure you subscribe to the channels if you haven't already done so. Again, that's TFG Sports Media and Kendrick Sports Hustle. That's SporTZHustle on YouTube. Make sure you like and follow TFG Sports Media and Kendrick Sports Hustle on Facebook. And you also can follow me on TikTok at Kendrick Henderson 51, as well as on Instagram at KDrick1969. So make sure you come in, like the broadcast, comment, talk to me, come join the conversation. We're going to be talking pretty much NFL Wildcard Weekend. That's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today, as well as a lot of coaching movements. A lot of coaches is end of some eras, beginning of some new eras, and some player movement, and it's just a lot going on. Plus, we also going to be talking about a beef. Sports media personalities beefing. That's the new thing now in sports media. For some reason, it's about, instead of talking about sports and reporting on games and talking, strategies and X's and O's, I have found, especially in social media, especially on YouTube, I have found that it is more sports content creators talking about other sports content creators than it is about sports themselves. And we got a beef that that finally blew up between Mr. ESPN, Stephen A. Smith, and Jason Whitlock. We're going to talk a little bit about that toward the end of the show. And we're going to go from there. So we're going to jump right into this thing. Again, make sure you come in, comment, like the broadcast, share it to all your social media platforms. So let's start off. We're going to go ahead and jump into the Super Wildcard Weekend. It was super. It was super for two teams and not so super for two others on yesterday. Again, we had the two games on Saturday. We had the first game was the Browns at the Texans in Houston, and then we had the Dolphins at the Chiefs in that cold Arrowhead Stadium. It was the fourth coldest game in NFL history according to stats. So we're going to talk about those two games, what happened with that. Then also we're going to talk a little bit about the two games today. We supposed to have three games, but again, this Arctic blast, Mother Nature changed a whole lot of that. If you don't know, the Steelers-Bills game was supposed to be at noon today in Buffalo. Well, it has been moved to tomorrow, still in Buffalo, at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it will be on CBS and Paramount. So we only have two games tonight. That's the Packers at the Cowboys at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then we got the Rams at the Lions at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's on NBC, and the Packers-Cowboys game is on Fox. So let's talk about the first game that went down yesterday in Super Wildcard Weekend. The Texans hosting the Browns, and this was, I thought, of the two games yesterday, I thought that this was going to probably be the most intriguing matchup, because it's just ironic that these two teams ended up matching up against each other because of what happened a couple of years ago. Former Texan quarterback Deshaun Watson was traded to Cleveland because of some shenanigans that he was allegedly accused of in Houston. And at that point, it was time to the Texans as the organization decided it was time to cut bait. They traded him to the Browns, where he signed that big, massive guaranteed contract, the first of its kind. And his career has went on the down track. That is Deshaun Watson. But these two teams, I thought they were going to be evenly matched. You got the old gunslinger and Joe Flacco, 39 years old, that was pulled off the couch a couple of weeks ago and went 4-1 as a starter for the Browns. And then you got the young gunslinger, C.J. Stroud, who has had what we would call probably one of the best rookie seasons in the history of the NFL. So this game was going to be which quarterback was going to be able to put their team on their back and lead them. And it came out, man. The Texans put a whooping on Cleveland, 45-14. And this game started off like a track meet. They were trading, like a boxing match, I should say. They were trading punches back and forth. And then the third quarter came, and Joe Flacco made two crucial mistakes. He threw two interceptions, and the Texans returned both of those for touchdowns. And that was the game right there, people. That pretty much sealed this thing. But let's talk about the Texans, man, about this franchise, first of all. This is their first time in the playoffs since 2019. And just to think about how far they've came, because, I'd say probably about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, when all that drama was going on and with Cade McNair and all the people they had in place, I was like, man, this organization is straight trash right now. You hire a coach that you really didn't give him a chance to be successful, David Culley. He was one and done. And then you hire Lovie Smith. Really, he didn't really have a shot, and he was one and done. And so, a lot of people were saying that this wasn't an attractive job to take, me being one of them at that point, because I just felt like the organization was dysfunctional. Well, then here they come and hire this young hotshot defensive coordinator and former Texan, DeMeco Ryans. And I thought, a lot of people were saying that he shouldn't take that job. But sometimes when you trying to get your first job, you got to take what's available. And I thought that he would come in, with him being defensive minded. I definitely thought he would come in and give this team a boost defensively, which he has done. But I just think overall, man, DeMeco Ryans has come in and this team they've taken on this personality, man. You can see that they play with a chip on their shoulder. And DeMeco Ryans he's that type of guy. He's that type of coach. And it's shown in their play. It looked like they was going to be down and out and not win this AFC South. A couple of Jacksonville faltered down the way, and Indianapolis as well. And Houston Texans ended up winning the division, and they got a home game, and they showed that they're a damn good team, and it's going to be they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. Now back to C.J. Stroud, second overall pick last year, and I think he's definitely gonna win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. He was 16-21 yesterday, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, no mistakes. He was making the right reads, and he was cool, calm, and collected in that pocket, man. And the offensive line kept him clean. Running back Devin Singletary, he had 13 carries, 66 yards, 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Nico Collins is coming on, making a name for himself. He has 6 receptions, 96 yards, and 1 touchdown. So the Texans, man, again, those 2 big defensive T-days, that NRG Stadium was rocking, and they got the big win over the Browns. And this is disappointing, for the Browns. Obviously, they didn't have Deshaun Watson, who was on the sideline at that game, by the way. If you didn't know, he was with the team. Joe Flacco, he threw for over 300-something yards. They had that 1 touchdown, but them 2 interceptions, that did them in. Tight end David Njoku had 7 receptions for 93 yards, and that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it offensively for the Browns. Defensively, man, they Myles Garrett was kept in check. The secondary just had a lot of missed assignments. Texas receivers were running free. Blake, the former Cowboys tight end, I can't remember his name, Dalton Schultz. He got loose for a big one. Then their tight end as well, their other tight end, he took one 87 yards. Matter of fact, it's the longest touchdown in playoff history for the Texans. So the Houston Texans, they showed a lot of things on both sides of the ball. And guess who I got somebody joining me right now. I'm gonna bring him in. I think he's getting ready. Can you hear me, Mr. Michael Coleman? Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, man.
Hey, if you don't know now, you know this is KLTV's sports director, Michael Coleman, out of Tyler, Texas, at the ABC affiliate. Mike, man, how are you doing on this cold Sunday morning?
That's why I'm only going outdoors one time today. It's going to be a round trip
Yeah, I know
to the
that's right.
office, in and out.
I understand, bro. I understand. So how your year been going, man? I hadn't chatted with you since we embarked in
It's been good, man.
2024.
It's been good. Of course, we ended the football season late last month,
Yeah.
a month now, pretty much. And so now it's just high school basketball, the college scene. I am preparing for the Super Bowl. I'll be going to Las Vegas.
Okay. All
So
right.
obviously, I'm keeping an eye on NFL
Yeah.
Wildcard Weekend, and
Right.
it's once you're in that football mood way back in August, you don't get
Right.
out of it until February.
Right. Well, I definitely wanted to see if I can link up with you while you're out there, where we can do something live
We
with
can
you.
do that. We can do that. We can do that.
Now, I was just talking about that Texans Browns game yesterday, Mike. I just want to get your thoughts on Mr. CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. What's your thoughts on that game that went down yesterday?
The Texans, and I mean this in a good way, look like kids having fun.
Mm-hmm.
There was a minor shootout early on.
Right.
And the issue is going to be, okay, who's going to blink first and start, not being successful moving the chains. And it was the Cleveland Browns. Now let's do this. Revisionist history. Joe Flacco, he had his moment. He was Cinderella.
Right.
But even when he was in the league, he wasn't all that.
Right.
Uh-huh. And so for him, and he deserved all the praise and everything he got his way. But football can be a fraud sometimes. It can you can get faked out like somebody getting juked, and Flacco juked everybody is what he did. And give credit though to the Houston defense. I'm so happy for DeMeco Ryans. So happy for his rookie quarterback. They're both MVPs, a combo in my book. Mm-hmm. And so I think it helped that they played indoors. I don't know if Houston, their young team, could be successful in cold weather.
Yeah,
so they got off on the right start playing. They're playing with house money, as they say.
Right.
So we'll see how they can do on the road.
Yeah, we'll talk about that game, and you got a whole lot about the Chiefs in that kind of weather. We'll talk about that in just a second. Speaking of Stroud, if you didn't know, he was the youngest quarterback to win a playoff game and the highest drafted rookie to win in postseason at 22 years old. He's just a little younger than Michael Vick was when he took Atlanta to Lambeau Field and beat the Packers. So he's the youngest quarterback to
and let me say this. Let's give some love, and we may have talked about this before, because I've talked about it before. Let's give some love to East Texan Lovie Smith, because Lovie Smith didn't tank a game last year.
Right.
He won that last game, and everybody was mad at him, and they got the second draft pick.
Right.
And of course, Chicago traded it, the first pick, to because they had Fields to Carolina, and I think the folks need to give some love to Lovie Smith, because he's part of the reason why the Texans, I think, are in position to be where they are right now.
That's a very good point.
He's a good dude, and I hope they showed him some love.
That's a very good point, Mike, because I did mention him and Lovie. I did mention Lovie Smith before you came on, talking about he kind of came into a situation that wasn't all that great. David and the coach before him, David Culley, he didn't take over a situation. That organization was dysfunctional for a couple of years. So my thing was, I definitely agree with you. Lovie Smith does probably deserve a little bit of the credit and a little bit of the success that these Texans are seeing this year. Now, they back in the playoffs since this first time in 2019. Now, the thing is, they're either going to be visiting Kansas City, or Kansas City. If the Bills win, Kansas City is going to Buffalo. If the Steelers win, then Kansas City will host the Texans. So they may have their hands full if they go to Kansas City. Now let's talk about that game, Mike. The fourth coldest game in NFL history. It was -4 degrees Fahrenheit, -20 Celsius at kickoff, and had a wind chill of 27 below. Woo, Mike! Are you
Yeah,
glad
it was looked at below. That's what it was.
Are you glad you not in Kansas City right now?
Oh, I see. I see. My wife has already said, "Man, we don't miss that," and we don't.
Right.
I remember one year in Kansas City, similar conditions as this weekend, which was similar to the icing here 2 years ago,
Right.
maybe 3 now. And you're just like, you hibernate, man. You don't go nowhere. You don't, and you just stay hunkered down, And so, the way the Chiefs played, they didn't roll the dice on anything. They commanded the game. They played it the right way. And I know some folks are thinking, well, Miami come from a warm weather city and this and that. I understand all players ain't from the same. They're not from the town they live in. So
that's right.
So you got some Miami players who probably used to playing in cold weather. It wasn't the quarterback. It wasn't Tua, and vice versa. That was a good game in terms of just handling your business. It's bread and butter. Nothing crazy about it. You pretty much knew the run game was going to have to be effective for anybody to have success. And I think for Kansas City, if they wind up going to Buffalo, they will have played in this element. You know, that they're probably the only team that, I mean, think about it, other than Buffalo, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, they're playing cold weather.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
those three teams right there, pretty much.
Everybody wants to RIP the running backs. You got to have a run game outdoors in January. You just do.
You right.
And Chiefs have one, and we'll see if the Texans have one if they have to do it that way.
Yeah, speaking of the run game, Mike, I did say that was going to be a factor. The Chiefs ran for 147 yards total. The Dolphins only ran for 76 yards. I think that probably was the biggest factor in that game on yesterday. Pacheco did, they fed him the ball. He had 24 carries for 89 yards. So the Chiefs fed him. Andy Reid decided, like, we're not going to be doing all this, flash and dash. We're just going to try to run this football as best as we can and mix it in with a little bit of our passing game. And they did. Rashee Rice had 8 receptions for 130 yards and 1 touchdown. So that was big too. So I think the Chiefs are finding a mojo. They found it on one of the coldest days in the league. But I think, this team isn't dead yet, Mike. What you think they found that magic that they've had the last couple of years?
Here's what they're learning to do. And pretty much because they don't have a choice. Learn how to be patient. Yeah. You're not going to have those quick touchdown plays like you've had in the past. And this is even before Tyreek left. Or after Tyreek left. They found a couple of guys that go to the house on some stuff, special teams. But right now they're not that kind of team. They're not an explosive laden team. They're a veteran team now who has to, with a still very young quarterback, a veteran-laden team that's learning how to win the other way. And a few times, off and on the past couple of years, they've had to do it that way, but not as consistently as they're going to have to here in the postseason. They're going to still take their chances, and they're going to live dangerously, but I think they're playing with more of a sense of take our time. Now, the Taylor kid who keeps getting these penalties, I don't know what to say about him. I know he's trying to get the advantage against his man and whatnot, but it's costing them. So you just hope it doesn't cost them at the wrong time.
At the wrong time, yeah. And speaking of the wrong time, the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since December 30th, 2000. So it's been 23 years since the Dolphins have won a playoff game. And the Chiefs won their 15th consecutive home playoff game. So there you have it. Chiefs are waiting on. They may be in Buffalo or they may be hosting Houston. Now, let's move to the games today, Mike. Speaking of which, we're supposed to have 3. We only got 2, guys. The Steelers at Buffalo. They moved that game to tomorrow night, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time on CBS and Paramount because of the weather conditions that's gripping everyone in America. But, we're going to talk about that the first game today. Matter of fact, I forgot to put something on, Mike. I'm putting it on right now. We're talking about the Packers at the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? How about not those Cowboys?
I mean, hey, no matter how they got there, they got there, and they didn't. Well, I mean, they didn't go into they didn't come into the playoffs limping, banged up. Everybody's healthy for the most part.
Yeah,
I just think what they need to do is not show love to Love this afternoon. Get after him early. Let him know we're going to be coming here every time. It's give him something to think about, which is going to hurry him on making his passes or making what move that he has to make, or he might have to hesitate. That's what you want to make him do. You want to harass him. Offensively for the Cowboys, they got to come out fast. Come out fast and establish what you want to do. Are you going to run the ball? You're going to throw the ball. You're going to mix it up. Then that's what you need to do on those first few drives, just to establish. Here's what we're going to be doing, and we're going to keep doing it until you stop us. I liked last week, and not only was CeeDee Lamb in the picture in terms of catching passes, he's going to always be in the picture, but I like Tolbert getting involved. He caught the first touchdown pass, I believe. And of course, Cooks. So I think if they get their receivers some different balls, some different looks, there can be some success had in the receiving department, and not just for CeeDee Lamb. I think they can have success with multiple receivers.
Well, Golf Hawk, thanks for joining us. I think this is the first time viewer. Appreciate you commenting. Golf Hawk says, Mike, great KC win. He said it still feels like they are leaking oil. He said a better defense will expose those butterfingers. That is what Golf Hawk said about KC. I think sound like he is a KC fan, but he seemed like he's still concerned about the drop balls. I know that's something that they've been dealing with.
Well, I think you have to take last night's game with a grain of salt because of the weather conditions. It's because and something like that, like last night. And I think this applies more to Kansas City than it would Miami, because Miami, air quotes, didn't have a chance. In Kansas City's case, they had to make the right moves, because if they were to lose that game last night, I mean, there's real problems with that team.
Yeah,
considering how they played off and on. But they're at home, and they did what they did, and they had to play the way they had to play. They played conservatively, but they also thought about the process. So we'll see what happens next week.
Now, back to the Packers and Cowboys. Now, both quarterbacks are hot right now. Prescott and Love, they both rank first and second in the NFL in touchdowns this past regular season. Prescott threw 36, Love 32. The Packers defense, they don't defend the run very well. They give up 128.3 yards per game. That ranked 28th. But here's the stat that I'm going to be tooting. The Packers are 5-0 at AT&T Stadium all time, including the playoffs. And y'all know I'm going to talk my ish. Guess what? I call AT&T, I call it Lambeau Field South, because when the Packers come in there, we leave an impression. And I got this graphic up right here, Cowboy fans. In the last 10 games the Cowboys and Packers have met, the Packers are 9-1. The last time the Packers lost to the Cowboys was that 30-16 up in Green Bay, I believe. And that was the game, I believe. I remember that game very well. I think Zeke Elliott had a ball. He had a field day running the football, 30-16. That is the last time the Cowboys have beat the Packers. You think this is going – and obviously these teams are totally different now.
Oh, no. But I tell you what, that's a heck of a stat. And if I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm telling them, I'm reminding them, hey, listen, we don't lose at AT&T but once. Why do we need to change things? I mean, that's the kind of stat that can get a team really fired up and get them like amped when you're talking among each other about, okay, well, we're gonna make it 10-1. All right, that's a great stat. So I don't think it's gonna work, but I think that's a pretty good stat.
Hey, I you know what? Cowboys, that was an offhand compliment, Mike. You know what? that's like somebody saying, you know what, you look good, but you don't look that good. That's kind of what you just said.
Well, yeah, but I tell you
Yeah,
what,
yeah,
um, I'm still impressed with how Detroit was almost able to knock the Cowboys off their heels of being
right,
unbeaten at home 3 weeks ago now.
right, right.
And whatever they were doing that, that made it work, trust me,
Mhm.
LaFleur and them, they've looked at the game film.
Oh yeah, no
How did
doubt.
Detroit,
Yeah.
shut down Cowboys and put points? Well, they put 19 points on them, but were
Mhm.
able to score for score with them, and they're breaking that down, man. They're breaking that down. So they're
Right.
looking at that.
Yeah, and speaking of injuries, the Packers got quite a few. Christian Watson, he's doubtful. I mean, he's questionable right now. He's been banged up all year with a hamstring injury. Quarterback Jair Alexander, he's questionable with an ankle. Running back AJ Dillon is probably not going to play. He's doubtful with some sort of thumb wrist injury. As far as the Cowboys, like you said earlier, Mike, they pretty healthy. Only thing, they backup quarterback, he's questionable. He got some sort of illness. I saw
I
that
saw that.
yesterday. So that could be something to watch if something
True.
happens to Dak Prescott. So we're gonna keep an eye on that. But I think like I say, the Packers, they they just there's no pressure on the Packers at this point. All the pressure's on the Cowboys. You the number 2 seed team.
Oh yeah.
I think at this point it's either NFC Championship or bust for this team.
And
They got it. Go
of
ahead.
the Cowboys, the pressure is most on McCarthy. It's not on Dak, and it's
Right,
not on Micah. There
right,
should never
right.
be any pressure on Micah. But
Mhm.
this is on McCarthy, man. And you know why it's extra? You got these free agent winning coaches walking around trying to decide what job they're gonna take.
And we gonna talk about that just a second. We're gonna talk about that too. Golf Hawk says the Packers must establish the run. If the Packers can run the ball, the passing game opens up. I'm Steelers all the way. I hear you, Golf, and you're right because the Cowboys' defense is vulnerable, especially between the two defensive tackles. They can't stop the run up the middle. If you can run the football on the Cowboys up the middle, you got a good shot of controlling this game. So I definitely agree with what you said there, Golf Hawk. So again, that's the game where everybody's going to be glued to first on today. Kickoff is on Fox at 4:30 uh, Eastern Standard Time. Now, let's move to the last game of the day, Mike. The Rams at the Lions. The storyline here is both these quarterbacks were traded for each other a couple of years back. You got Matthew Stafford coming back to where he played the majority of his career. And you got Jared Goff, who was traded by the team that's coming in that he actually took to a Super Bowl a few years back. What's your thoughts on this Rams-Lions matchup, Mike?
I think the Rams play with so much energy. Haven't seen much of, excuse me, the Lions. I really haven't seen much of the Rams. I mean, I know about Cooper Cup and Nikola Goa, whatever. I can't think of his name. Nikola, what's his name? The receiver.
Yeah, he's Puka,
He said he's a heck
Puka.
of a guy. He can
Yeah,
catch. He can play.
he can catch. Right, right. Mm-hmm.
So
Uh,
other than him, but I just think Jared Goff he's got a chance to prove to LA or thank LA. Either or,
right,
he
right,
can thank him and say, "Hey man, thank you guys for getting me here to Detroit because we're going to advance to the NFC divisional round." Or he can be mad, say, "I'm mad at y'all that y'all didn't keep me, so I'm going to beat you." So he's in a win-win, and I just think I've never really been a Stafford. I've never really been wowed by Matthew Stafford. I mean, maybe part of because he was in Detroit. I don't know, but he's done a
mm-mm,
good job. He's gone to the Super Bowl with them,
right,
with the Rams.
right,
But
right,
I just like the energy that they have because of Dan Campbell. This is a Dan
right.
Campbell thing,
Yeah,
man. And I
yeah,
think the
I
Rams are
agree.
going to feel it tonight.
As much as it pains me to say it, because Lions is definitely one of our rivals in the NFC North, but I have to say Dan Campbell has came in and he totally changed the way that franchise looks at football, man. And I think that was a great hire for Detroit. I would say that, and I think the Lions is going to win this game. I didn't even make my pick, but far as I think the Lions will win this game, and I think the Cowboys will squeak one out on my Packers, but I think it's going to be close. I think the Packers going to give them a run for
Yeah.
their money, in my opinion. And you made mention of a topic, Mike, that we were going to talk about. Let's move on to coaches. There was a lot of coaching movement this week. We've had a lot of end of eras when it comes to coaches, as you can see here. Let's first start with the news of Bill Belichick after 24 seasons with the Patriots, 6 Super Bowl titles, 11 division titles, numerous 9 in it, the AFC conference championships. Oh, wow. Were you shocked when this went down like this, Mike?
Oh, dude, it's like dead coach walking, man. I mean, shoot. Yo, you hear about Nick, and then you hear about Belichick, which you kind of knew, but just the way it played out. I mean, I'm more
Right.
surprised at how it played out than I am that it happened in terms of who's going to be the successor. We'll get to
Right.
that. Pete Carroll, you know, Pete's a hippie to me. He's the hippie of the NFL coaches, and he does his own thing because it's always worked for him. I mean, he didn't even mind saying in his press conference, I competed like hell to keep this job. You never heard a coach on the way out the door saying, I tried to talk him out of it, but he just came right out and said, yeah, I tried to keep this job. I like that about him. He's the kind of cat that can do that. But see, I think Seattle does need a facelift, but I'm going to tell you somebody else who I think deserves a facelift, and they're in the playoffs. I think the Steelers need a facelift. I think Mike Tomlin needs a new challenge. I really do. I love him, and he's done what he's done. But I just think he needs some new atmospheres. I know we're not talking about Mike, but now he's the longest tenured coach since 2 of these 3 are out. But so yeah, with Pete Carroll, he's gonna be with them, and he's gonna be as an advisor. He can advise, but they ain't gonna listen. You know what I'm saying? I think that's an appeasement thing right there. And then as far as Nick Saban, I mean, hey, I think Nick, in so many words, even kind of said it when he talked to ESPN, who I think is going to be his next employer, because you don't just give your first interview since stepping down to a network that you ain't going to be with pretty soon or eventually. That's the way I look at that. But people are asking me, am I going to be here 3 years from now? I can't answer that.
Right.
And I think the NIL has changed the landscape of sports. I think in so many ways he kind of said that without saying it.
I agree. Yeah.
Because he's not saying, you know what, I'm 72 years old. I don't, I can't give assurances I'm gonna be here 2 years from now. Because he's, I think for as brief that the portal and the NIL have been around legally, with him as the coach, he knows the rat race it is.
Yeah.
I got a championship at LSU. I got 6 at Alabama. Right. Why am I chasing 17, 18-year-old kids now?
Right.
And I think that's cool. He can do that.
And you hit on two points that I definitely agree with. Mike Tomlin. I'm a Mike Tomlin guy. I'm not necessarily a Steelers fan, but I'm a Mike Tomlin guy. And I do think it is time for a change there in Pittsburgh for him. Even though he's never had a losing season in his 17 years there, but I think they've become stagnant in my opinion. So I do think that and if he does, walk away, he's definitely going to be at the top of the list of a lot of these openings as far as getting a job. He won't have a problem getting a job. And then what you mentioned about Nick Saban, I totally believe the NIL that he soured him. I think that really ran him into retirement because of guess what? Now the playing field is even. Now you might can recruit the 5 stars, but it's going to be about, okay, what kind of NIL deal I'm going to get. And then there's other schools out there that that athlete can get it from. So now you got to really sell yourself. For Alabama ain't never really had to do a lot of selling. Let's go and be honest with you, since he's been there. But now with
I'll tell you another sign.
Now you got to sell yourself a little bit.
I tell you another sign that this move was made. Alabama ain't got the kind of long green the state of Texas got.
No, they don't.
What I'm saying? Because you remember a couple years ago, it's resurfaced since he stepped down. He told a bunch of boosters, y'all need to pony up a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, that was close. That's about 2 years ago when he said that.
Yeah, and evidently they haven't done that. They haven't done that. And like I said, Texas got long green. They got that long green.
Yeah.
It's California and, but especially those 2 states. But, I think, I think now when he goes to wherever he's going to go behind the microphone, I hope they use him right. Because I would like for him to be in a role where he tells us what's wrong with college athletics, what's wrong with college football, what's wrong with the NCAA. Because he don't have no repercussions.
Right. Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like for him to be Aaron Rodgers, but in a more truthful, fact-founded way, outspoken.
And then real quick on Pete Carroll, my thoughts is I listened to his soundbite after this went down, and he didn't sound real happy about this advisement role. He didn't sound real happy that the people that decided to push him out, he said that they aren't really football people. So just listening to his soundbite, I could tell that. I mean, I don't see Pete Carroll. He may do that, but I don't think he's going to do it for long. It sounds like to me he's probably going to look for other opportunities somewhere else. And speaking of Seattle, the rumors already out that Dan Quinn, they looking to try to bring him back. They want him as the next head coach in Seattle. Obviously, you know Dan Quinn was Carroll's defensive coordinator on ththem Super Bowl teams. So that's a rumor that's out right there. Now, real quick, Mike, let's talk about this new coach at Alabama, Kalen DeBoer. Boy, they did not waste time hiring this man out of Washington. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Nick Saban announced his retirement on Wednesday. Then what? On Thursday, they hired their new coach, man. What do you think about them hiring Kalen DeBoer? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, trust me, he was number 3. Sarkisian was 1.
Right.
And Lanning.
Yeah, Dan Lanning from Oregon.
Was 2.
Yeah. Right.
Was 2. And this guy here, DeBoer, said, well, shoot, let's just go get it. And, good for him. He's in.
You're good for him.
Yeah. I love the stat that I read. He's like 11 wins out of 7 out of 9 seasons, which is fantastic.
Right.
But how many of those wins were against an SEC team?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's even faced an SEC team. Well, other than Texas, but they were still the Big 12.
Right.
But on the same token, younger guy, can the players relate? Because I always think that young players, and it's not true, but I think it's more true than not, that young athletes, black and white, are more prone to ingratiate a black hip football knowing coach.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because I
don't mean just Dion either. I don't mean just him. I'm thinking about even like the cat that Mr. Kraft hired. What's his name? D'Amico Ryans. Because it's a different generation today.
Jared Mayo. Speaking of which, we're gonna transition to him. You talking about Jared Mayo that Kraft that hired?
Right. Well, see, this is a different generation. You can't be Bill Belichick or Vince Lombardi today with these kids.
Right. I agree.
Because first of all, and it shocks me when I see this, and I've seen it twice in the last 6 months. Younger people really are not all that into sports. They're not. There's other things getting their attention, but the young athletes, they can relate to those kind of kids. They can relate to the younger. Like he's 37, the youngest head coach. McVay's like 38.
38, something like that.
So that's right, and that's nice. That's not a bad way. And McVay's a good coach. He's a guy that they gravitate to.
Right.
But I think coaches today, they have to have a certain understanding of today's youth, and if they got kids in that era, in that demographic, they'll learn it. They'll know it more than anybody else. I think that's why Dion does so well, because he's got kids that age. Even our friend, your old boss, my boss, he says, I understand that age because I got 2 kids who are that age, and I get it. And I think that's the thought process you have to have. But having said all that, I think this generation is kind of soft, man.
I think so
soft.
too.
I mean, it's just, and I think social media has had a hand in that.
Well,
when I say soft, I mean sensitive.
Yeah, definitely.
They go, they go in the locker room and read what the comments are.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the comments.
Yeah.
They ain't going nowhere. And
But
so
but
that
but right, they ain't going nowhere. But again, that takes a coach that can adapt to that. And again, like you say,
right.
if you're not willing to adapt to these younger kids and social media and stuff,
So the
then
kids ain't going nowhere, and social
they
media
they
ain't
they
going nowhere.
they going nowhere. And obviously in the college level, NIL ain't going nowhere now either. So now
No,
you got to
no.
deal with that too. But let's talk about this Jared Mayo hiring real quick. I think there was something that people was wondering, why was he hired so quickly? Because of the NFL's Rooney Rule. If you don't know what the Rooney Rule is that teams are required to hire to interview two minorities and a woman once a position comes open. Well, now these owners have figured out a way to circumvent that. If you get it in your contract to say that you're going to promise me to be a successor, then that's the contract. They don't necessarily have to interview anyone for that open
Yeah.
position. And that is the reason why Jared Mayo was able to be hired so quickly.
And you know what?
Go ahead.
So if you can do it for a Jared Mayo, you can do it for a white young coach on your staff.
Yeah,
It's like
man.
it's
Right.
like affirmative action. It didn't benefit black people. It
No.
benefited white women.
Yeah,
Affirmative
exactly.
action. So it's a form of affirmative action. But hey, I do applaud Mr. Kraft, because I also think at the same time that if he's open-minded to do this, maybe the billionaire co-owners or colleagues of his will also be say, well, shoot, if he bit the bullet and he's going to get results. I mean, hey, look at what Houston's doing, right? I mean, we're giving the Patriots a lot of love. Look what Houston did. They got a young guy, knows his stuff, looks like he can still play.
Right.
He don't have a facial hair, nothing on him. He's just a baby-faced guy. And
an
I think
Alabama guy too, by the way.
and an Alabama guy, right?
Yeah,
Forgot about that.
right.
So
Yeah.
I think those days, and we just talked about it, those days of get your butts out here, that kind of stuff. You can't do it. You say, hey, when you get a chance, can you come out here and run some sprints for us? Just take your
Right,
time, that kind of thing.
right,
You
right.
you can't even be a Jimmy Johnson. But Jimmy
Yeah,
Johnson could do it where the players, you saw how he got
right.
commended weeks ago going to the Ring of Honor. I mean, those players just, especially Mike and Emmett, they were just
Yeah.
all over him. That hug, that love, man. And I think that's all what
Right,
Jimmy
right,
wanted, is just show me
right.
some love. And that
Just
was
show me
all
some, and
authentic. And I think that's where today's coaches need to be with
right.
these young guys coming in
And I
at
totally
both
agree.
the NFL and in college. And
And in
easier in
college too.
college. I think Lane
Yeah.
Kiffin is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The players
Mm-hmm.
love him a
Yeah,
lot.
they do. And it looks like Steve Sarkisian is perfect for those players in Texas
Yeah,
too, because
yeah.
the
He's
players seem
fine.
to love
Yeah,
him
because
too.
he used to be at Washington. He had an alcohol problem.
Right,
He liked the ladies and all that kind of stuff, and was
right,
winning then. And
right.
so now
Yeah,
he's focused and he's doing some things. I didn't think he could be the guy to do it, because there were so many that came or didn't get a chance to.
yeah.
But they got this one right. And like I said, and going into the SEC, he's right for the job.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you're right, Mike. So, end of an era with some coaches, but it's going to be the start of the new eras. We got all these coaching vacancies in the NFL right now. You got the Falcons, the Panthers, you got the Raiders, you got the Commanders. Now you got the Seahawks. No longer New England. They've already done that. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with these positions going to be filled, and who's going to be the leading candidate. Will Belichick continue coaching? Is
I
that
think he
something
will.
you think so?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he will too. Oh, the Chargers, I forgot. That's the
I
opening
mean,
too.
I think the thing for him is he's got to go with, well, like if I'm still not sold on Herbert, but they are. So let's just say, for sake of argument, if he were to go to a Chargers, I know they're looking at what's his name, Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, that
Yeah,
came out that they
because
right.
but don't just let him, wherever he goes, don't let him cook everything. Just let
Right.
him bake the turkey, and I'll
Yeah,
take
don't
care of everything else, the
right,
side
yeah.
orders and all
Yeah,
of that.
right. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that was the downfall.
Right, right.
And probably the most valuable player to their franchise is Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what they've done since he's been gone, and what he got a Super Bowl since he's been gone. Probably the
Right,
most valuable player in that franchise to that team of this era.
right.
And him leaving, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say it exposed Bill Belichick, but it made him have to work harder, and he didn't get nowhere.
Yeah. Yep. So again, that's the changing of the guard. I mean, how many real quick, and then we're gonna jump off here and get to the last segment. How many 70-year-old coaches are we really gonna see? I think it's a dying breed. I don't think you're gonna see guys because all these guys are in their 70s. I don't
Yeah,
think you want.
Andy Reid. Well, Andy Reid's like he's just under 70.
Yeah, I mean, how much time longer does you
Uh,
think he's gonna do? I mean, I don't think you'll see coaches really coaching well into their
but
70s
you think
anymore.
about it, I think you're right, but I think we're gonna see a mixed bag because Lombardi, the Grambling coach, Mr. Was Robinson?
Well, Eddie
Eddie.
Robinson. Yeah, Eddie
He's
Robinson.
around for long. That was out of necessity, but he was, he withstood for a while.
Right.
Parcells, I think he got to 70.
Yeah,
I think 70 or 71 is about
yeah,
the time you go, you know what? I ain't
yeah.
trying to deal with this stuff anymore.
Right,
It's time for
right.
me to move on and do some different things. Because I got all
Yeah,
that. What more can I possibly do? You
right.
know? Um,
Yeah.
so
So,
yeah, it's a dying breed. I'm thinking about the ages of these other coaches. I mean, right, Vrabel, he ain't hit his
hmm
stride yet. He's a good coach too.
yeah. I
Um,
think he's late. I think he's 49 or 50. I want to
yeah,
say. Yeah. So, yeah.
but it's like the internet and social media. It's like TV is like over 65 years old now.
Right, right.
Is and
Yeah,
the new TV is the internet and social media,
right.
and so there's always everybody and everything can always be replaced.
That is so right. Miss Toria Williams, thanks for checking in with me. One of our big fans. She says, stay warm. You know, it's cold here on the East Coast. Yeah, it is cold everywhere, Miss Toria. So make sure you staying warm too as well. Now we're going to our last segment, Mike. And this one, I really want to get your take on the landscape of sports media and sports journalists. I don't know if you saw watch this
I have.
segment.
I have.
Well, ESPN Stephen A. Smith said, enough is enough," and he went in on Jason Whitlock. As you can see, what he called him, and I agree with Stephen. It's not much I agree with Stephen A. Smith on, and I don't dislike Stephen A. I have to have him in doses, me personally, but I was totally on board with him going in on Jason Whitlock because I think Whitlock is a disgrace to sports journalism, and that's just my opinion. Mike, what's your thoughts on this? And then
Well,
I'm
it's
going to
kind of
ask you
like
another question.
it's kind of like the Bumpy Johnson, Frank Lucas sports gangsters, riling at one another.
Right.
I agree with Stephen A. too because Whitlock, his punching bag are people who look like him.
Yep.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And when he shows up on Fox, it's always on mute. Well, I'm not even on that station. If I'm flipping channels, like, oh, I know I don't want to watch now.
Right.
Now, when I was in Kansas, when I first got to Kansas City, he was still there with the Star newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And we shared the same barber. And
Mm.
we've had a couple of just casual conversations and whatnot. But he wasn't the Jason of Ogre that he is now. And
Right.
he's burned a bridge. I don't think he burned a bridge in Kansas City. In fact, I remember when he was leaving Kansas City,
Mm-hmm.
he was making it sound like there's a Whitlock sweepstakes for me to appear on your show on radio and let you all know what my next move is. Kind of like LeBron taking my
Right.
talents.
Right.
And he had these two
Right.
stations really going after him. And that's what he meant to Kansas City because he sold newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
He was a tremendous columnist, firebrand kind of thing. I mean, he even threw Christmas parties with the Chiefs GM at that time. Carl Peterson would show up. I mean, so he did a lot of things. He also I would hear stories of, when you go to the baseball game with the Royals, they feed the media. It's a buffet thing. You pay $15, whatever. All he would do is come up there and get him a couple of plates and fall asleep at the chair in the press box. So I've heard those stories about him too. And I think because he's able to afford not working at a major network because he's banking and he's banked. You know.
Oh yeah, is he? Because
Oh
he
yeah,
just does something.
he's really good in the money department. I saw a debate with him and
Okay.
Roland Martin one time.
Oh yeah, I watched that too. Roland ate him
Yeah,
up
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah. I
But
watched it.
I just think Jason and Trenton Green, former quarterback for the Chiefs and the St. Louis Rams, he said it perfectly. He was in Indiana when Whitlock was writing for the local newspaper there. Now Whitlock's from Indianapolis, but he said, you know, Jason just writes that stuff for attention because when I knew of him when I was playing in college, he wasn't that way. He was a very good reporter. But now he's got this thing going on that he gets paid to do like he does. And so, and Stephen A, he held his tongue long enough. I mean, that's the thing about being at that level. The longer you don't say nothing, the more guiltier you appear to be.
In public opinion, yeah, because they
Another
feel like
opinion.
right. They don't. If you don't respond, then they say, "Oh, okay, he must be telling the
I just
truth."
think the I don't work for ESPN, Steve A. Smith came out and said what he said.
Yeah,
and he's got people who support him.
Yeah,
Jamel.
Jamel Hill agreed with everything he said, and she worked
everything
it.
he said.
Yeah.
So Whitlock. And I understand. Well, I do understand the Rush Limbaugh effect because that's what this is for him.
Right.
Because people will say, "Well, I've never listened to Rush Limbaugh." I said, "Well, somebody's listening to him. He got millions and millions of listeners."
Yeah, they were listening. Yeah,
and the same thing with Whitlock.
They listening.
There are people who like to hear him dog people out who look like him.
Right.
I do like. I saw Warren Sapp kind of call him out.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Dion. I think he's talking about Dion.
Yeah, he had been on his Dion
and he's like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
and I've seen Marshall Faulk. So at least there's some balance there. There's some balance there. But
let me ask you this real quick, Mike, then we're gonna get out of here, get final thoughts. Do you think sports media journalists or personalities, I really call them opinionists because most of them aren't analysts, most of them are just giving you their opinion. Do you think that world has totally changed how we look at sports? Because most people that love sports, a lot of times you tune in and you watch these people on YouTube and they're not really talking about sports. They going at each other. They talking about someone else, another personality. So do you think the landscape it's turned into a reality show in your opinion?
I think what we've learned is, and we learned it a long time ago, that negativity sells.
Yep.
I remember I think I might have been still in college or out of college, and cable was still relatively new, and CNN was the darling, and TBS, they had a show called Good News. It wasn't a sitcom. It was like a newscast of good stories.
Nobody
watch.
Yep.
Didn't nobody watch. And so I think what's happened is we've gotten away from sports reporters, and that's what I'm a reporter. Right. That's what I am. I might have an opinion here and there, but I've never really had an opinion that was worth like talking about for 45 minutes.
Right.
I'm like this. Damn. They should not have gone for it on 4th and 1.
Exactly.
It's too early in the game.
Right.
And I leave it at that. But I don't need to lambast the guy that botched the play or whatever. I mean, I just, so that's what I do. And so with these people, with Stephen A, he's entertainment. He's more entertainment than anything.
Right.
Whitlock is not a reporter. He's an opinion caster who hates all that is those, again, who look like him. I mean, it's how he acts anyway. I've never heard him say a good thing about somebody, about their feat, about their accomplishment. The other shows, I mean, hey, Fox, they're behind all those shows.
Yeah.
And it's a model. They've taken a model from news and they've applied it to what their product is, sports.
Right.
And it's okay to do that, and it's crazy because, in social media, you can pretty much say anything and not get sued for defamation.
Yeah, pretty much.
You can't do that because there's no rule. I mean, so it appears to be. I see a lot of stuff on there that ain't true, and it's probably because they don't have any rules or laws enforcing that. but they do in mainstream.
Right.
You can't go on the radio, you cannot go on television and just say a bold-faced lie with no facts and think you're going to have a good week the rest of the week, because you're going to get a phone call. And Jimmy Kimmel's a perfect example, him and Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Talking about that boat, that whatever, that island or whatever. You know, and what's his name? Kimmel's like, you know, don't make me have to sue you. You know.
Right.
And people have asked the question, well, you talk about people, see, but he's a comedian. See, people, that's another thing. People that blur the lines of what a comedian is and what's truth and what's fiction. Aaron Rodgers is not a comedian. He flat out made a comment. There was a connection to Epstein and to Jimmy Kimmel, and it's not true.
Right.
And so, like I said, in social media, people don't get sued for false
right. And Miss Toria says that's a dying breed. She's talking about real sports newscasters. She said, not all these dudes' opinions and bashing each other I want. She said, I want the news and what's going on, not their opinions. That's half the time not worth 2 cents. And Miss Toria, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's what I try to do. I don't come on here. You know, sometimes I give you my thoughts on something, but at the end of the day, I'm just here to tell you what happened, what's going on, what's the stats. This is my thoughts on certain such. And I'm not,
thoughts are good. It's the mean-spirited thoughts that are profiting.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, thoughts are good because editorializing has been around for as long as broadcasting and journalism has been around. You know, I think one of the best shows ever that just went off the air, Bryant Gumbel, they're off the air now, you know.
It's Real Sports. I agree.
No, I mean, it was a great show. Yeah. And I think that platform of storytelling at the national level, I'm going to say it's gone because it's accepted in the Olympics. They'll do a long story form. Right. And so for me, my whole approach is, if I find an interesting story that's sports related, I'm gonna go out and get that story. And people want to hear those kind of stories in your own community, you know.
Right.
And I just think young broadcasters today, because they've been inundated with what's on TV at the national level, they all want to be Nick Wright, they all want to be Stephen A. Smith, but they don't want to go out and report.
They don't want to go out and report. It's like, they just want to sit in front of this microphone and just, you know, talk. That's pretty much it.
I gave Nick Wright his first TV appearance when I was in Kansas City.
Get out of here.
He's from Kansas City.
Did not know
he had
that.
A radio show, 610, and he's a cool guy. I like Nick Wright. My first press conference I went to that was Chiefs related, when I got to Kansas City, these during spring camps or whatever, he walked over to me, introduced himself to me. You know, he saw that I like to dress. He said, hey, if you ever need to get some new threads, my wife is the manager, sister girl, by the way.
Yeah, I knew that.
Manager at a clothing store, and you need to check it out. I said, thanks, man. I mean, not that everybody else that didn't do it aren't cool, nothing like that. That's what made him stand out to me. Him walking, so I had a personal experience with him. And then when, you know, during the NCAA and the Big 12 basketball tournament, my news director and I said, listen, we got this show special before the games. I said, he's like, how can we do it differently? I said, you know what? Get that cat, Nick Wright, bring him on TV. See, I listened to him too. When we brought him in to interview him and whatnot, he was down. So his first time on TV was with yours truly. And I would have, you know, for our specials or NCAA specials. And on my Sunday night shows, I would have him come in and be a guest. So he's real, and he went in on Rodgers, but he didn't do it the way everybody else does. He put up a tweet, and I thought it was going to be blasting him because the headline doesn't match the story, of course. And he said, Patrick Mahomes has more wins in playoffs than Aaron Rodgers. It's the truth. It wasn't a knife twisting anything.
Right.
He just put it out there. And I was like, see, that's if you're going to do that, it's just a fact. Just a fact.
Right.
So I think he tries to keep it balanced. He's a big Kansas City guy. And so I've had experience with him.
Yeah. Well,
the vitriol.
Well, Nick Wright is too much a fanboy for me. He's too much a LeBron James fanboy. I can't listen to him seriously talk.
Well, there's some things, but he understands the culture.
Yeah, I get that, but I just
Yeah.
I can't listen to Nick Wright because he's a fan. And that's another thing I have with a lot of these sports media journalists now, or opinionists. They're Shannon Sharp. I love Shannon to death, but
Right.
he's a LeBron James fanboy. I can't listen to you
Cheerleaders.
talk. I can't listen to you talk basketball. I'm a
Yeah.
Michael Jordan guy, but you're not going to ever hear me get in front of this microphone phone just being a big Michael Jordan cheerleader, because that's not. I don't think you.
And you know
should
what?
do that. I don't think
And
you
you
should
and
do
you
that.
know what? And the thing is, I don't hear anybody really hammering Michael Jordan like that on TV. Now LeBron, they do. And to me, what that comes across as, you have to hammer this point completely all the time.
Oh, they don't do
just
it
to
on
make your
TV,
point.
Mike. They do it on YouTube, though. They may not do it on TV, but believe me, they go in on Mike on YouTube. These
Oh, you in
sports
the
content
barbershop.
creators,
Oh,
they
yeah,
go
you in the
in.
barbershop, you playing cards, yeah.
No,
But
I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about sports YouTube content creators. They go hard on Mike. I see them. I watch them. I'm talking about that. They got over 100,000 subscribers. They got a following. They go hard on Mike. For real.
I mean, but against Mike.
Yeah, I'm talking about they don't think he's the greatest. They go.
Oh, no.
Hard.
But I'm no. Well, what I'm saying is the opposite of what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
You don't see a wave of folks saying, "Hey, Mike's the guy." That's just like Mike's the guy.
I got you. Yeah, got you.
No, Mike's the guy. Why are we having a conversation about this?
Yeah, you really don't. You don't see a whole lot of that.
But you know what? It's kind of like politics. Who has all the bumper stickers and the red hats? And they making a lot of noise about it, right?
right.
And the other side is like,
yeah,
okay, he's the president. Okay, that's
right.
Okay, his approval level is down.
Yeah.
But he's the president.
Right.
There ain't no bumper stickers and hats out there, like it is on the other
man.
side.
It is crazy, man. It is crazy. The world we live
in. Before you let me go, I gotta throw this out here.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea, but I know the NCAA won't allow it. There's a guy who used to be a boxing promoter. He's trying to create another bowl, the Irrelevant Bowl. It would be a bowl with the two worst teams in the country, and they would play during the bowl season. I'm like, you know what? If you could have a Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, you might as well get you a Mr. Irrelevant to scout. You know, I thought that's really not a bad idea. But
Mike, who want to watch that?
Oh, you know, somebody gonna watch it. First of all, they're the two worst teams. Oh, what the hell? I might saw two of those during the regular season. At least I can do is watch them in the bowl game.
Man, you right. Man, you know what? If that happens, man, I'm gonna actually watch it just to see. Because
dude,
right. It definitely will have you really want to see. Okay, the two worst teams. Okay.
Because everybody's a winner, and even if you play in the Irrelevant Bowl, you get to win. Then you don't have such a long off season. Shit, we won the Irrelevant Bowl. Who'd you play? 0-12, Frisco. You know,
right.
But I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, that's funny. Miss Toria says they dogging MJ right now because he did not go to Chicago for the ceremony. They dogged him out on YouTube bad. Yeah, I know they do. And yeah, he's getting a little vitriol, but Scotty is too, Miss Toria. It ain't just Mike that's taking the heat. Neither one of them showed up for that ceremony. I don't know if you saw that, Mike. They did that ceremony for the Chicago Bulls.
Oh yeah, where Jerry Krause's widow.
Yeah,
she wasn't booed, but her husband was.
Right, and that was so tacky. They booed that man, and his widow there, she crying.
See, that's the world we live in today, man.
Man, it's sad.
This man is gone, and they're booing him.
And his wife is there. You just have no couth or no compassion. Come on, man, really?
And that's acceptable today.
I know
that
is
acceptable today. That's okay. You can do that. No, you can't do that.
That's bad. That's really bad. But that's really bad. But anyway, all right, Mike. I know we were gonna let you go. Get final thoughts.
All right, dude.
Before I let you get out of here, what you got? Well, what you got? Final thoughts, real quick.
I think Jared Mayo needs to get an offensive guy not named McDaniel.
Okay.
Or Daniels, whichever the S, without the S or whatever. I think Alabama is going to be fighting to be elite. And number 3, I think the Lakers and the Warriors need to up their game, but I don't think they can.
It's funny you mentioned that. Miss Toria just said that the Lakers ruined my Lakers. She said LeBron ruined her Lakers. He needs to retire. He has never learned how to play team basketball. He thinks he's the whole team. That's funny. You
And
mentioned the
see, and when
Lakers.
people criticize
Yeah,
LeBron, when people criticize LeBron,
mhm,
it's not a mean spirited thing. It's the observation, if
right,
you know the game, of what you see he's
right,
not doing. And that's
right.
cool.
I agree. I agree. But them LeBron fanboys, boy, let you say anything wrong about LeBron, boy, they going off. They about to cry. They throwing their computers, they throwing phones, everything. So anyway, Mike, I appreciate
All
you
right,
joining
buddy.
me today. You stay warm. Tell the missus I say hello. You
Okay, I
guys.
sure will.
All right, that is Michael Coleman, KOTV Sports Director at the ABC affiliate in Tyler, Texas. That's my guy. We've been knowing each other for years. We've worked together quite a few times, covered Dallas Cowboys training camp for some years when I worked with him at the ABC affiliate in Tyler. So again, we're going to jump off of here. I want to thank you, Miss Toria, for always being supportive and watching. If anybody watches this later, make sure you rewind, make sure you like, subscribe to the channels, comment. I do go back and read the comments as well. And get ready for these Sunday games. Again, we got the Cowboys hosting the Packers. That's about to jump off in about 2.5 hours. Then the nightcap, we got the Rams at the Lions. So you guys stay warm, be safe if you have to get out on the roads. I know some areas of the country we got snow and ice and all that good stuff. And so you guys be safe out there. And we will see you on the next report. I am Kendrick, the sports guy. And until next Sunday, I am out. Peace.